Good morning, everybody. It is time for Tao of the Day. Welcome to Tao of the Day. I'm not prepared in any way. I was, not that I need to be. So yeah, I am here and ready to do some Tao of the Day. Um, I am doing Tao of the Day right now. I didn't want to wait any longer, only because I have an 8 o'clock. So I like to, I don't like to hold a really hard stop. So I like to just allow things to flow as they will. I am here to talk about the Tao. What is the Tao? I want to get a little focused here because I'm not really focused. The Tao is an ancient text written about 600 BCE. And so that was around the same time that scholars state that the Old Testament was written. So it is considered an ancient text and consists of 81 chapters or 81 verses. Each one of the verses helps us understand, or at least approach, or it points to what it looks like to live in accordance with Tao, or live in accordance with reasonable expectations of what you can have for your life. So many people live their life wanting others to change for them, and yet that isn't always possible, right? Like, not everybody wants to change to make your life better. I mean, why would they? It makes no sense, actually. What we want is to be able to live our lives in present moment as we are and in all of its glory. Um, every time we come across a trigger, anytime we come across anything that is frustrating or upsetting, we have to get into the mindset of like, well, what is this saying about me? And what am I doing now? What am I doing in this moment that is asking someone or something else to be different? If it's cold and like you put on a jacket, if there's this old proverb I remember where it's like, if you walk around barefoot, well, you're gonna, you know, your feet are gonna hurt, right? So, well, I mean, there's two ways of going about that. You either cover the bottom of your foot or you carpet the world, right? You're not gonna carpet the world. You're gonna cover the bottom of your foot. Just every step you take is with your foot. So you protect yourself. And that doesn't mean that you don't want to pick up glass that's on the ground and other things like that, but you can't do all of that, right? You can't do everything to protect your feet. You can't, there's not enough things, there's too many things out there in the world that you're protecting your feet from that you're not gonna, and you're not gonna be able to carpet the world. And I think a lot of times we think of the world as something that we want to carpet so that we can make it so it can be easier for us to be able to traverse the world, get along in the world. So we want our neighbors to change, and we want, the laws to change, and we want the countries to change, and we want the people to change, and we want all of these changes to be made to the world because they hurt us. Well, the Tao, in its attempt to help people live a more reasonable life, says, well, why don't you just put on a pair of shoes instead of trying to carpet the world, instead of trying to change the entire world? Why don't you let it be and you just protect yourself? You get yourself into a place of being stronger because you have on a pair of shoes. Or you can continue walking barefoot and, build calluses and other things like that that'll protect you as well. So I'm going to pick number 44 today. So there are 81 verses in the Tao, and they're all about trying to help us live a more reasonable life. And if you have a number between 1 and 81, I would invite you to come up and we can chat about your verse for today. your Tao of the day. So, number 44, this is going to be my Tao for today, states fame or integrity, which is more important? Money or happiness, which is more valuable? Success or failure, which is more destructive? If you look to others for fulfillment, you will never be truly fulfilled. If your happiness depends on money, you will never be happy with yourself. Be content with what you have. Rejoice in the way things are. When you realize there is nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. So yesterday I had a pretty interesting experience. I was practicing closing with a friend of mine, Catherine Mahoney, who's also here on Wisdom. We were just practicing because I've had some clients recently just kind of like not pull the trigger, and I do want them to pull the trigger because I want to get paid and all of these sorts of things. But as I was doing it, it was so difficult. It was so difficult to put my mind in this place, and it actually caused something to happen in my body. It caused my body to constrict in a way that was reminiscent of my MS flare ups. And so, because of that, I had to lay down, I had to relax, I had to meditate, I had to call Andy Scarantino, the love of my life, to just kind of talk me down a little bit. And when I was able to do that, I calmed down, my body's fine, everything's good, no big deal. But here's the thing, fame or integrity, which is more important? Money or happiness, which is more valuable? That's a big question. When we ask that question, money or happiness, which is more valuable, I can see that yesterday I had to put all of my tools, that all of the practice that I was doing, all of the things that I was attempting in order to get more money. Had to put all of that down so that I could be a little more happy, because it was stressful for me to be in a situation of trying to acquire money to the degree that I was doing at that moment. It was just a little stressful, and that made my body react. And when my body reacted, I was definitely not happy. So, money or happiness, which is more valuable? I can attest that happiness is definitely more valuable than money. Maybe not everybody's going to agree with that, but moment to moment, when push comes to shove, you're going to find that it is true that money is not as valuable as happiness. And here it is. I'm reading number 44: fame or integrity, which is more important? Money or happiness, which is more valuable? Success or failure, which is more destructive? I always look at that. I always look at this idea of success or failure, which is more destructive. What a great word to be using for these two opposites, right? Like, which is more destructive? If we look at success, we look at the successes we've had in the world, right? Let's say the success of the automobile. Let's say the success of space travel, or air travel, or the success of, all of these things that are contributing to global warming and all of that, right? Like, let's look at the destructive nature of success, the oil industry, and all of these successes that are around us. How much of that has destroyed? How much of that has been destructive in the world around us? Now, failures can hurt an individual, right? Failures can really be destructive in someone's life. Maybe failure from a class or whatever. Like, all of those sorts of things can be a little disruptive, more than destructive. It's just disruptive. And so when we look at those two things, success or failure, which is more destructive? And I would definitely say success over time has been more destructive than failure. And that's a big deal. We want to be able to make sure that we recognize that. And there are times where we're after fame and we give up our integrity because we are so determined to get to get famous. Money or happiness, which is more valuable? When we look at value, we look at what is valuable in the world, so many people can say, well, money has value. Well, when we bring it into our lives and when we see it, face to face, and when we're facing like what is happiness, and you're definitely going to want to be happier than you are wealthy. It's when you have some a semblance of happiness that you can dismiss it and say, okay, I want to go get money now. And when that happens, you're losing the value of that little bit of happiness that you have and how valuable it could be. Success or failure. you know I used to talk with Paul Padmore here on Wisdom on Sundays all about failure. He hosts the My Perfect Failure podcast. I host the Recover Yourself podcast. And we definitely address a lot of issues as it relates to failure. You want to be able to embrace failure. The more you can embrace, and it's not that you want to go out and fail intentionally, you want to embrace the fact that failure is a possibility and that it is part and parcel for learning. If you look to others for fulfillment, you will never be truly fulfilled, as we continue to read this verse. Looking to others, you'll never be truly fulfilled. If we look at the three things that are more important, more valuable, and more destructive: integrity, happiness, and failure. Those are all individual things. Those are all things that have nothing to do with anyone else. Your integrity is only about you. Your happiness is only about you. Your failure is only about you. When you look at the other three, fame has to do with other people. Money has to do with purchasing other things. If you have money, then but don't have anything to purchase, then it has no value. So money, in order to look at that as being valuable, has to have a market, has to have things behind it in order to purchase, has to have all of those things in place in order for money to have any value whatsoever. So fame, money, now success. What is success? Does success, like, we look at failure, and failure is individual. Maybe success is individual and it doesn't really look outward. But we usually look at success as some outward thing, right? You get money, you get praise, you get some sort of reward, and that is looking to others for that. And so as we move into this next line, if you look to others for fulfillment, i.e., if you look for fame, money, or success, you will never be truly fulfilled. Those things will never fulfill you. Failure can fulfill you because it can keep you moving along the road. Now, maybe you fail and give up. Well, is that then like, like maybe you failed at cryptocurrency? Do you care about cryptocurrency so that you're going to, go out and try again? Or do you not care about cryptocurrency and so you just fail and then give up? If you fail and give up at something, well, then it's not your calling. But if you just continually fail and keep going at it, because that's my path, right? Like, I mean, I have a lot of success, but it's all built on failure. And so it's really important to understand that when we find out who we are, in my parlance, when we recover who we are, when we recover ourselves, then we are in a place where we will follow ourselves, and we will not be looking to others for fulfillment. If your happiness depends on money, you will never be happy with yourself. Once again, we turn to money. But money it could be anything. If your happiness depends on anything external from you, if your happiness depends on a promotion, you'll never be happy with yourself. If your happiness depends on your marriage, you'll never be happy with yourself. If your happiness depends on anything external from you, then you'll never be happy with yourself. Then it says, be content with what you have and rejoice in the way things are. Be content with what you have, right? Like, and rejoice in the way things are. So we're here in Tao of the Day, reading number 44. If you have a number between 1 and 81, you can definitely come up and we can go over that chapter. Be content with what you have. Rejoice in the way things are. You know, I keep reading this line and I'm trying to connect it back to all the other things. Content with what you have is content with yourself. And if you're content with yourself, you're gonna see that integrity is more important than fame. If you're content with what you have, then you are going to be happy rather than striving to make more money because you're going to see the value of your happiness. Be content with what you have. Rejoice in the way things are. Once you experience failure, you can rejoice in that. Yes, okay, I experienced something that failed. Let's go back. Let's go back at it. Let's try again. Because trying again is at the core of your life. If you want, like that's where you have integrity. You have integrity because you're trying again. You have integrity in your life. You have integrity with who you are because you love what you're doing and you're going to go out there and try again. So be content with what you have. Rejoice in the way things are. Rejoice in the way you are. When you realize there is nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. I'm pausing here for a moment, just connecting it all. When you realize there is nothing lacking, when I look at that and I look at these first three lines, fame or integrity, which is more important, money or happiness, which is more valuable, success or failure, which is more destructive. When you realize there is nothing lacking, there's nothing lacking in your failure. There's nothing lacking in you being happy in this moment right now. Being happy in this moment right now means rejoicing in the way things are right now, which means that any striving for something else. As I was talking earlier yesterday, my body reacted to my trying to practice a way to make more money, and yet there's so much happiness in my life, right? Like, and so I reached out to my love Andy so that she can help me center, that she can help me be present, so that she can help me see that it was my happiness that I wanted, not money. Right. When you realize there is nothing lacking, as we look at fame or integrity, when your integrity is full, there is nothing lacking, and you don't have to, you don't have to reach for fame. You can just be full of integrity. You can be who you are. Be content with what you have. Be content with who you are. Rejoice in the way things are, no matter how they are, whether they're like whether they can be described as good or bad. They are as they are, and that's okay. There's that story of the man you know uh, who lost this horse, and his wife, or maybe let's just say his neighbor. His neighbor says, "Oh man, that must be horrible," and he's like, "Oh, we'll see." And then his horse comes back a couple days later with a girlfriend. And it's like, oh my God, now I got two horses. And the neighbor's like, hey, this must be great for you. You got two horses. It's just like, well, we'll see. And then his son goes out to work with the new mare, and it rears up and he gets injured. And then the neighbor's like, oh my God, this is the worst luck in the world. And then the guy says, well, we'll see. And then the army comes through town the next week and constricts like all of picks up all of the healthy young men, and the neighbor's like, oh my God, your son's hurt, so he can't go. That must be like that's the best luck in the world. And the guy goes, oh well, we'll see. And that's the thing. If you can just be here now, and that's Ram Dass or whatnot, right? Like just be here now. Is if you can just be here now with what is going on without judging it as being good or bad, then you can rejoice in the way things are. So be content with what you have. Rejoice in the way things are. When you realize there is nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. You don't need fame. Of course, I hate to say things like you don't need money, but if you can rejoice in the way things are and you realize there is nothing lacking. Now, that's a deep realization that has to happen. Remember, this was written in 600 BCE, and we've created a world in which, lack is definitely something we experience day to day as it relates to money. And when I have stress and other things around that, like that can exacerbate my MS. So I want to make sure that I'm always being in a place where I understand that happiness and calm is more valuable than money, and I have to make sure that we stay there. And I did really well yesterday. As I started to notice myself, I spoke up and I said, okay, I can't do this anymore. And then I reached out to someone who can really help me calm down. I reached out to someone who loved me and could show me a little bit of happiness so that I could really, refocus into the moment so that I could once again be content with what I have and rejoice in the way things are. When you realize there is nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. And it does. It definitely does. Thank you so much for joining me today. If anybody has a number between 1 and 81 you'd like to select, I would love to have you up. Other than that, my name is Martin John. If you benefit from the work that I do here on Wisdom, I'm always open to accepting tips through Venmo at Martin John underscore Garcia. If anybody has a number between 1 and 81 you want to select and we can go through the Tao together, I would love to have you. Um, do I have anything coming up? I do have a subscription plan that you can join, and that would be a one-on-one call with me every month, and we can really start focusing on you recovering yourself and getting on the path to really looking at yourself and understanding what you can put into place right now to be content with what you have and rejoice in the way things are. As I talk about the Tao, we want to make sure we recognize that the Tao is about opening you up, not changing the world so that you can open, right? It's opening you so that the world changes. And the world is always going to change as you change your perception. Like once you find those things that like drive your purpose, once you find those things that are important to you, your whole life will change. I know when I was struggling with addiction, when I found alcohol, my life changed. Then when I found sobriety, my life changed. And then when I found myself, my life changed. And it is constantly changing as I'm focusing on different things. And so once we recognize that we don't have to focus on anything, we can just allow things to be the way they are and then just experience them. And I must say, yesterday when I was having my bodily issues, I was stressed and I was not able to be present. And that's why it was so wonderful to be able to reach out to Andy and feel that love and then be able to get present again, be able to be present, be able to quiet my mind. Now, I still, just as it says here, if you look to others for fulfillment, you'll never be truly fulfilled. I don't want to relinquish my control of myself and say, okay, well, Andy can help me. She can, but I have to learn from that. And I can't learn that she's the answer. I have to learn that I'm the answer, and I have to be able to do that. That's that's just so I don't put myself in a position to lean on her to the extent that to an extent that maybe she won't always be able to do. Maybe she'll be busy some days or other things like that. And so that keeps me healthy. It keeps me healthy by learning and recognizing, oh, what just happened? Okay, this happened. I want to make sure that I can put myself in a position to do that next time. And of course, when you love somebody, you want to lean on them. And when you love somebody, you want them to lean on you. And I want to do that. I want to lean on Andy. And I hope that she always wants to lean on me. But I also want to recognize that, when it comes to my real health, when it comes to my real fulfillment, that is always going to be coming from within me. And when that comes from within me, it's truth. And when it comes from someone else, it's truth as well. It can be, but we want to make sure that we are being reasonable. And in being reasonable, we want to make sure that we're not asking the world to change, that we're doing the changing. And as we do the changing, the world changes around us. All right. Thank you so much for joining me for this Tao of the Day. If anybody wants to come up at the last minute and pick a number, please do. Other than that, until next time, keep recovering yourself.